Bowblax, spinning, tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Yeah, Bowblax spinning tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cashing out the drama, merch drops all around. Fingers dunked in mayo straight from the jar. On that grind non-stop, he a real bizarre star. Keyboard warrior, never fighting in the street. Reads a tweet, makes a bag, it's a digital feed. Mayo dripping down, finger licking good. Internet's joke misunderstood in the hood. Some people don't know the struggle of being a mayo monkey. Tweeting for the bugs, sticky hands, life clunky. Live stream hustle, never clean, always funky. Bowblax spitting tweets, that's his bread and hunt. Got a fridge full of hell, man's life on that grind. Twitch saga surfer, always ahead of time. Money flowing in, drama never sleeps. Out here flexing on the haters, dipping deep. Mayo hands sticky, life offbeat and witty. Internet persona, buddy owning the city. Comment section wild, full of hating and pity. Bowblax running circles, making it look easy. Tweets on repeat, laughter on demand. Living in his Mayo kingdom, master of the land. Finger licking hustle, never out of style. Bowblax keeping it real, never running out of dial. 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 Bowblax, spinning, tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Yeah, Bowblax spinning tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cashing out the drama, merch drops all around. Fingers dunked in mayo straight from the jar. On that grind non-stop, he a real bizarre star. Keyboard warrior, never fighting in the street. Reads a tweet, makes a bag, it's a digital feed. Mayo dripping down, finger licking good. Internet's joke misunderstood in the hood. Some people don't know the struggle of being a mayo monkey. Tweeting for the bugs, sticky hands, life clunky. Live stream hustle, never clean, always funky. Bowblax spitting tweets, that's his bread and hunt. Got a fridge full of hell, man's life on that grind. Twitch saga surfer, always ahead of time. Money flowing in, drama never sleeps. Out here flexing on the haters, dipping deep. Mayo hands sticky, life offbeat and witty. Internet persona, buddy owning the city. Comment section wild, full of hating and pity. Bowblax running circles, making it look easy. Tweets on repeat, laughter on demand. Living in his Mayo kingdom, master of the land. Finger licking hustle, never out of style. Bowblax keeping it real, never running out of dial. 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 Bowblax, spinning, tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Yeah, Bowblax spinning tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cashing out the drama, merch drops all around. Fingers dunked in mayo straight from the jar. On that grind non-stop, he a real bizarre star. Keyboard warrior, never fighting in the street. Reads a tweet, makes a bag, it's a digital feed. Mayo dripping down, finger licking good. Internet's joke misunderstood in the hood. Some people don't know the struggle of being a mayo monkey. Tweeting for the bugs, sticky hands, life clunky. Live stream hustle, never clean, always funky. Bowblax spitting tweets, that's his bread and hunt. Got a fridge full of hell, man's life on that grind. Twitch saga surfer, always ahead of time. Money flowing in, drama never sleeps. Out here flexing on the haters, dipping deep. Mayo hands sticky, life offbeat and witty. Internet persona, buddy owning the city. Comment section wild, full of hating and pity. Bowblax running circles, making it look easy. Tweets on repeat, laughter on demand. Living in his Mayo kingdom, master of the land. Finger licking hustle, never out of style. Bowblax keeping it real, never running out of dial. 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 Bowblax spinning, tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cal, Bowblax spinning tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cashing out the drama, merch drops all around. Fingers dunked in mayo straight from the jar. On that grind non-stop, he a real bizarre star. Keyboard warrior, never fighting in the street. Reads a tweet, makes a bag, gets a digital feed. Mayo dripping down, finger licking good. Internet's joke misunderstood in the hood. Some people don't know the struggle of being a Mayo monkey. Tweeting for the bugs, sticky hands, life clunky. Live stream hustle, never clean, always funky. Bowblax spitting tweets, that's his bread and hunt. Got a fridge full of hell, man's life on that grind. Twitch saga surfer, always ahead of time. Money flowing in, drama never sleeps. Out here flexing on the haters, dipping deep. Mayo hands sticky, life offbeat and witty. Internet persona, buddy owning the city. Comment section wild, full of hating and pity. Bowblax running circles, making it look easy. Tweets on repeat, laughter on demand. Living in his Mayo kingdom, master of the land. Finger licking hustle, never out of style. Bowblax keeping it real, never running out of dial. 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 Bowblax spinning, tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cal, Bowblax spinning tweets filling up the feed with clowns. Cashing out the drama, merch drops all around. Fingers dunked in mayo straight from the jar. On that grind non-stop, he a real bizarre star. Keyboard warrior, never fighting in the street. Reads a tweet, makes a bag, gets a digital feed. Mayo dripping down, finger licking good. Internet's joke misunderstood in the hood. Some people don't know the struggle of being a Mayo monkey. Tweeting for the bugs, sticky hands, life clunky. Live stream hustle, never clean, always funky. Bowblax spitting tweets, that's his bread and hunt. Got a fridge full of hell, man's life on that grind. Twitch saga surfer, always ahead of time. Money flowing in, drama never sleeps. Out here flexing on the haters, dipping deep. Mayo hands sticky, life offbeat and witty. Internet persona, buddy owning the city. Comment section wild, full of hating and pity. Bowblax running circles, making it look easy.
Today we are talking about Bowblax, and today's Bowblax discussion is on his side channel, Truly Autistic. Now, Truly Autistic is basically the equivalent of Bowblax's autism tutorial. Like, Chris Chan made a video years ago called the Autism Tutorial, where he explained autism and why you shouldn't bully him. That's basically what Bowblax is doing here. So what I've done is I've queued up some of the videos from that, and we're going to watch them. I don't know how many of these videos are going to be interesting, but I have plenty of time to stream, and I'm pretty bored today. So we're just going to watch through all these videos. And I have my audio fixed now, so everyone should be able to hear it just fine. Let me adjust that just so you don't get your ears destroyed by Bowblax. Now, let's watch
So what
this
is
video called What is Autism?
autism? This is a super important question that unfortunately doesn't have a straightforward answer, but I will try my best to explain it here. The biggest hurdle when it comes to explaining autism to people is the general public's view of it as a mental disability. Yes, it is.
Autism is a mental disability. Regardless what you want to say, it is a mental disability. And it's a mental disability because it is a condition that hinders your ability to work. And disability is literally something you get benefits from the government. Chris Chan lived his whole life off of his tugboat, which was money given to him by the government because they deemed that he was too autistic to work, or at least not work a full-time job. And chances are Bowblax is also on disability, and he probably also gets checks from the government because no one's subscribing to Mr. Manshi. So it's just funny that he doesn't want to label autism as a mental disability when it so clearly is. I just think that he doesn't want people to call him mentally disabled.
Is a mental difference, and it is a disadvantage over neurotypical people in a lot of aspects.
That's a cope. That's literally just explaining what a disability is, but trying to make it sound like you're not disabled.
But to label it as a disability provides such a narrow view of what it actually is. When we
That being a disability.
see a disability, we see a disadvantage on top of an already existing foundation. For example, when you see someone in a wheelchair, you know that their legs intended to work. That was the intended design of their body, but something
That is fucking stupid and actually incredibly ableist, because when it comes to someone being physically disabled, it's not all the same. Some people end up getting physically disabled through either an accident or some type of neurological effect that made them lose the ability to walk. But some people are born without the ability to walk. They're literally born with their legs not working. Their body is literally built different than yours. So to say that they should be walking and that walking is the normal is completely fucking ridiculous. Not every fucking person is built the same. I love that for him being autistic, he gets to be completely built different and born different. But for someone who is physically disabled, a disability that you can see, then it's completely different. He's basically saying that if you can't see what's wrong with the person by looking at them, they have nothing wrong with them. That's what he's trying to get at. Don't call me the R slur because I don't look like it. That's completely dumb.
happened either when they were born or after they were born to disable their legs. Same with someone with depression. Obviously, that's a struggle that ideally wouldn't exist. If we look at the brain as a foundation, the examples I just gave would be a cedar foundation with pine sprinkled all over it to represent depression. The foundation...
That's fucking stupid, because people who are born with depression, some people literally are depressed their entire life. Their body literally has a chemical imbalancement that makes it to where they can't feel joy. To try to act like that depressive people aren't similar to autistic people is fucking stupid. It's stupid to logically say that autistic people, their mind is built different, but depressive people, they're just a normal person with depression? That's fucking dumb. They're both mental disorders that cause people to think differently.
is the brain, the pine on top is the depression. But with autism, the foundation is just fundamentally different. Instead of having a cedar foundation, we have an oak foundation. So it's not like we have autism on top of an already existing neurotypical brain. Our brain is just fundamentally autistic.
Yeah, and someone who has bipolar disorder, their brain is fully bipolar. Someone who has full-blown mental retardation, their brain is fully retarded. You can't fucking see the differences between a bipolar person, a mentally retarded person, and an autistic person but they all are mentally disabled. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Which explains why there's an autism spectrum. For depression and
There's a mental disorder spectrum. Mental disabilities as a whole is a spectrum. It's not just for autistic people. Autism literally used to share the spectrum with other mental disabilities that have now been roped into autism, like Asperger's. So, like, it's completely ridiculous to build it up as in autism is on a spectrum, you don't understand autism, but every other mental disability, you've got something wrong with you.
other mental disabilities, it manifests in everyone in generally the same way. Obviously, I'm simplifying it here, but if you're depressed, you're going to be really sad.
Depression is not being really sad. That shows your complete misunderstanding of depression. Depression is not the lack of joy. Depression is not just being sad. Depression is not wanting to get up, not being motivated to do the things that you love, not feeling anything, basically. It's like a numbness that exists inside of you that sucks out any type of pleasure from anything you do. Depression is a lot worse than you think it is. It's not just, oh, I feel down today, I'm a Debbie Downer. No, it's completely fucking different. Depression is as serious of a mental disorder as autism is.
Mental starting point that is just structurally different from a neurotypical brain. One person with autism is not going to be the same as another person with autism, whereas...
Yeah, but that's like literally the same thing with depression. There are some people who have depression, but they don't have suicidal depression. There are some people who have suicidal depression, but they don't have manic depression. Like, there are a whole fucking slew of conditions that have depression stacked on top of them. Like, to just assume that all depressive people are just sad is fucking ableist. It's funny that the video that's made to protect autism and to fight against the stigma of autism is stigmatizing other mental disabilities.
Someone who's depressed and another person who's depressed are generally going through the same thing. I think the best way to describe it is like the difference between a male and a female. They are both human, but they have psychological differences that make them act differently. But
I don't think he would agree with that statement anymore, judging by his Manshi account.
just because someone is born male or born female, it doesn't mean they're destined to think the exact same way, even though they might have similar traits because of being the same gender. Ironically, I think it would be easier for people to understand autism if we came down from the planet as aliens, because then people would expect a fundamental difference. Technically,
no, it's fucking dumb. There are literal decades upon decades of research on autism. You just don't like those researches. You don't like those studies because it makes you look bad. It makes you sound bad. So you're denying it and trying to fucking say that you're a special snowflake. When the reality of it is like, yeah, autism does make you think differently, but at the end of the day, you still have to hold yourself accountable. You still have to be responsible for your own actions. If you do something dumb, yeah, autism played a part in it, but that's still you also. You didn't have to do that.
if we want to think about it, neurotypical people probably have a spectrum too, but they just call it personality traits and IQ because they're...
No, it's literally a mental spectrum. That's 100% what you were saying. And like to fucking say that autism is like not a mental disability, but then to acknowledge that there is a spectrum is just completely ridiculous. The reality of it is there is a normal mind. There is a normal state for the human mind. But there are tons of mental disabilities that can cause the mind to behave differently. And if you want to break it down to the level of understanding that you are on, yes, it is similar to autism in the sense of it is not just a normal mind with this thing stacked on top of it. All of these people are born different and they have different struggles than a normal mind. But the thing is, because Bowblax hasn't lived with depression, because Bowblax hasn't lived with bipolar disorder, because he's only lived with autism, he can only give a perspective from an autistic point of view. And he doesn't realize that he's being discriminative to other mental disorders and that he is spreading misinformation about his own.
Brains were never defined as mental disabilities in the first place. The issue with understanding autism is we are always comparing it to the neurotypical brain, when in reality we are just dealing with something that is fundamentally different.
So this is Bowblax's video coping about how he's not mentally disabled. 100% that's what it is. He doesn't want to be seen as mentally disabled. He doesn't want to accept that he's mentally disabled. But the thing is like, you shouldn't be in denial that you're mentally disabled. You should embrace what your disability is and try harder to get above it. There are plenty of autistic people out there that are better off than Bowblax. They actually go to therapy. They actually try to be normal. They actually have a life. They have a job. They have a family. They have kids and a wife. There's no excuse. Like, Bowblax can woe is me all he wants to, but there's no excuse.
Which is why you can't raise every autistic child in the exact same way. Although you can learn from other autistic people, as we do have a lot in common. As neurotypical people have a lot in common with each other, although not enough to get along at times.
People don't really have anything in common. People think differently than anybody. There's no one set way that a woman's gonna act, no one set way that a man's gonna act, no one set way that anybody of any fucking field is going to act, because it matters how you're raised, where you're raised, and what the conditions for your upbringing is. That is the main thing that will impact how you think. Yes, being born away does impact that too, but a lot of our differences come from our culture and our upbringings, not just the way we're born.
There is that fundamental understanding that we are all
that is very slow in the mind of Bowblax.
Human at the end of the day. And it's similar to when you're dealing with someone who is autistic. So while I do understand a lot of the mindset of an autistic person, being autistic myself, I can't necessarily give advice that would apply to every autistic person on the planet. Whereas someone who deals with depression could probably give advice for depression that would be universally helpful.
I am someone who suffers through depression, and I can't give you any fucking advice about dealing with your depression. Like, the only thing I can say is go to therapy, talk to your therapist, and they'll help you with it, because I'm not qualified. Like, it's completely absent-minded to think that someone with one mental disorder could talk to people about their struggles with that mental disorder, and it basically be the same thing. I can tell you about my struggles with depression, and if you're depressed, you'll just instantly click and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I've got to do. It's literally the same thing with your autism. Just like how you can't tell people about how this thing could affect them, I can't tell people about how my thing could affect them, because there's no saying that the thing that causes my depression is the same as the thing that causes their depression. There's a lot of mental disorders that have depression stacked on top of it, and I can't assume anything. There are some people who are depressive and who have autism. There are some people who are depressive and have bipolar disorder. There are some people who are depressive and they have schizophrenia. All three of those mental disorders will handle depressive episodes completely differently than one another. And this is a big deal because a lot of times people compare bipolar people to autistic people because of mood swings and depression. There are big differences between the two, and to just say that anybody with depression can tell someone how to deal with depression is completely stupid. Like, I've been medicated for going on 3 years now, and I have switched between different dosage amounts for my medication. I've switched between different amounts of the pills that I take. It is a constant sliding scale of trying to figure out what helps you the best with it. And even though I've been doing my therapy, and even though I've been taking my medication, there are still moments where I am depressed, and there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to learn to cope with it and live with it better. And to fucking act like that, I can just watch someone talk about how they deal with their depression and it'll fucking help me is insulting. It's completely fucking insulting. And it shows that Bowblax is completely ignorant to other mental disorders.
So what are the main differences between a neurotypical brain and an autistic one? Well, first of all, we have the inability to naturally develop any social skills through just, I guess, growing up. We have to learn socialization as a skill like anybody else.
That's fucking stupid. 'Cause, like, literally, your brain is built different. So you can't just grow up. You can't just one day be like, I'm going to act normal now. And then just fucking graduate college and become normal. Like Chris Chan, I hate to bring up Chris Chan again, but Chris Chan graduated college. He has more qualifications to be employed than I do. He could get paid more than I could. But does he? No. He live streams and he fucking begs people for super chats. He doesn't have a real job. And that's because of how he chooses to perceive the world around him. It doesn't matter what his qualifications are. So you're acting like one day Chris Chan could just be normal. And that's not how it goes. Like, he knows what normal is. He knows how normal people act. He's talked about it and envied it. But there'll never be a time where he is normal. And yes, autistic people can go to therapy, they can learn to cope with the world better, they can learn to deal with their differences and learn to cope with their differences, but they'll never be normal. There will never be a moment where an autistic person grows up. You can't be normal if you're autistic. I'm sorry to say it.
Would with cooking or fixing a car or using a computer, which in a world that is designed for neurotypical people who can just naturally learn those things and pick up on those things as they grow up, causes us to be developmentally delayed in that area because the world isn't suited for our way of learning. This difficulty with learning to communicate with the world and other people can cause a lot of frustration due to people not knowing how to teach an autistic person, which in turn through extreme frustration can cause autistic meltdowns. I feel like that's the most
Yeah, but like autism isn't the only thing that causes you to have meltdowns. Like autism isn't the only mental disability that causes you to have issues. Like people say that they're going manic. You say that you're going manic. And manic is literally a symptom of bipolar disorder. It is literally a mental state that is triggered by bipolar disorder. It is where you are completely delusional, you're completely out of touch, you're completely just off the rails. But you compare your autistic meltdowns to being manic. And you speak on this thing when you know nothing about it. Not only do you not know anything about any other mental disorders, you don't know anything about autism. You can't be an advocate for autism when you don't even know your own disorder. Honestly, I would say Chris Chan is a better autism advocate than Bowblax. He understands autism more than Bowblax.
immediately obvious difference between an
Also,
autistic
hi,
person
babe.
and a neurotypical person. But that isn't the only difference. Because as I said, we are dealing with a fundamentally different brain. So autism just doesn't mean one thing. It means that everything within the brain works differently. For example, we are able to fixate and look into the finer details of one subject matter very easily, but that can cause us to ignore everything else. This is why you see
Yeah, but that's literally something that can happen with OCD too. But you wouldn't understand that. Instead, you just want autism to get all the fucking attention.
autistic people be addicted to one thing. Let's say an autistic person is really into Minecraft. They are so into it, so invested, looking into it so much that they start to drown out anything else around them. That's because we have a tendency to look at everything one at a time instead of seeing an overall broad view of stuff. If we have a bunch of information in front of us, we can only look at like one of each thing at a time and focus in on that rather than look at the picture as a whole, although we are capable of doing that. It just doesn't come naturally. The best visualization of this difference is how an autistic person would decorate their house versus a neurotypical person.
Okay, I'm tired of this video, so I'm gonna skip to the next one. But before I skip to the next one, I'm going to do a better analogy than Bowblax on autism, and it's so fucking simple. He goes on for another 2 to 3 minutes explaining autism, when I would say, just look at the logo for autism. The logo to represent autism is a puzzle piece. And the reason why it's a puzzle piece is because it's how you put together something. And the reason why it's a rainbow puzzle is it shows that the pieces, even though they fit, they're different pieces. It shows how a brain is structured for autistic people. The puzzle is put together, but the colors don't always match. It shows how they think differently than people. That is a far better comparison than any of the comparisons that Bowblax has made. And that's literally the logo of Autism Speaks. It is literally the logo that represents autistic people in general. So yeah, Bowblax is dumb. Let's move on to the next video. Trapped in My Dreams. Bowblax is going to tell us what his dreams are.
So today's video is not going to be like any other video on this channel, and I never expect to upload a video like this again. But it's something that I desperately need to get off my chest.
He does upload a second dream video. Just saying it now, so he does do this again.
And out of my mind, because it's been happening to me for about a year, and I just need other people to listen to what's been happening to me so I can kind of get a grasp of what's going on, in a sense. Normally I'm answering questions you guys have, but today I am asking you to answer a question I have, and that is around the topic of dreams. Now, normally over my entire life I've just had normal dreams. You either have a fantasy dream, a nightmare, what have you, just a little brief scenario play out every time you sleep, or sometimes it doesn't even happen at all, or you don't remember it. But over the last year, I've been having these dreams that feel less like dreams and more like every time I sleep, I'm transporting myself to another world that is equally as real as the one I am in right now. And the biggest issue for me with these type of dreams is how hard they are to get out of. Every time I'm in one of these dreams, in the dream, I have to actively tell my mind that this is not real and I need to get out. And essentially, I have to claw my way out into the real world. And by the time I actually do wake up, I have trouble remembering what is happening in the real world, like what room I'm in, who I am. It comes back to me.
This is actually a super common type of dream, and from what I understand of it, and I'm no expert, by the way. I've had these type of dreams too, and I actually have asked about it, and from what I understand is that it is most likely caused by your reaction to a medication you're on. And it can also be that your mind is playing out a scenario and it's trying to teach you how to handle it. It is trying to basically coach you into handling a trauma. It's basically forcing you to relive something so that you can move past it. That's what I understand about it. And the reason why it feels like reality and the reason why it seems like you're actually there is because it basically wants to reprogram itself to have an experience so you can move on from that thing that you're caught up on. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I've just actually asked an expert about it. But everyone thinks different. Everyone is different. I don't know how long I'm going to stay on this one because I think this one isn't going to be funny. But let's give it another few minutes.
Within a couple minutes, but usually that never happens with typical dreams. And I always end up waking up extremely late. Like, for example, it just happened to me today, and I woke up at 2 p.m. Normally, I wake up around 9 a.m. or 12 p.m. at the latest. So,
well, now you know Bowblax's sleeping schedule, so if you're going to kidnap him, you know when to get him.
what's actually going on in these intense dreams, we'll call it, versus the typical dreams? Well, in these dreams, I actually experience full days. I think I spent maybe like 3 days in there tonight. As well as I sleep and dream in that dream. So I have layers of dreams. So sometimes I'm dreaming and then I wake up in the intense dream and then I have to wake up again. Sometimes there can be up to 5 layers of this, which makes it a real struggle to wake up and makes me think that if I wasn't as diligent as I am, I might even end up in a coma because, like, I'm fighting my way to get out of these dreams and then end up
I'm telling you, Bowblax, with how your life has been going, you might want to just stay in the dream. The dream is probably better than your reality right now.
waking up so late. If I didn't fight, would I wake up at like 10 p.m.? Would I sleep through an entire day and just miss a complete date on the calendar where I wasn't awake at all? Will I wake up years from now in a hospital in a coma state? Will I not wake up at all? I have no fucking clue. And the fact that that's a possibility is kind of scary to me. Also, these dreams have consistency. Every time I have one of these intense dreams, obviously, you know, with dreams, there are going to be weird things going on and stuff that doesn't really correlate to real world physics or reality, despite it feeling that way. But there's a lot of consistency between them. For example, every time I'm in one of these intense dreams, I'm always in like a huge house with a bunch of other people. And this house isn't like a big fancy mansion, it's usually a low income mansion. Like everything's falling apart, all the bathrooms are disgusting, there's like 10 plus people living in there. And in the past, a lot of these people would reflect people I know in real life, but with this recent one, everybody in the dream I actually didn't know. There's nobody that I know in the real world that was in this dream, and I was getting to actually know people over the course of my 3 days there or whatever that I'm starting to forget as I record this, as I just woke up.
So I guess my original thought on it was 100% correct, and I guess my psychiatrist actually knows what they're talking about. Your dream is literally calling to you and trying to get you to learn how to talk to people and to meet people in real life and to get outside of your bubble and to learn how to associate and connect with other people. It is trying to program itself to teach you how to actually fucking live a normal life, but you're ignoring it, obviously. I was gone for a few moments. I come back to the most random ramble. Yeah, Bowblax is talking about his dreams. I feel like we've got the gist of it now, so we're gonna move on to social anxiety, the worst part of autism, which relates to that dream, funny enough.
Today I'm going to be talking about social anxiety and autism, and why unfortunately most autistic people are socially anxious.
Ooh, what is that big crunch? Bump that back up to 180.
Now, when I talk about social anxiety, there are two different types. One type is the one everybody gets, where you just get the feeling of anxiety, just like
Why does everything with him have to have like 8 fucking different layers? There's just social anxiety. That's all it is. You are anxious about social situations. You don't have to hyperanalyze it any further than that. It is as simple as you are anxious about social situations.
You have the feeling of being sad or the feeling of being mad or maybe temporarily being depressed. And then the other type where it is actually diagnosed social anxiety. Basically where you get extremely anxious about everything for no reason, even though your brain knows there's no reason to be anxious. For example, I used to get very anxious to go to the grocery store, even though
This whole fucking channel is just Bowblax sucking himself off about the things that he goes through. Like, this channel is not approachable by any means to anyone who doesn't give a shit about Bowblax. Like, it doesn't help people with autism. It doesn't help people who don't have autism that are trying to understand autism. It literally just doxes Bowblax. This video and these videos can only be used to understand Bowblax better. There is no other purpose for this channel than for Bowblax to suck himself off.
I knew socially what would happen when I went to the grocery store. It wasn't a big deal logically, yet I was still socially anxious to the point of basically being unable to function. For me personally, social anxiety is definitely the worst indirect consequence that I have gotten from being autistic. But first, let's explain why most autistic—
By the way, anxiety disorder is a mental disorder on its own, and you can have anxiety disorder without having autism at all. There are plenty of people with social anxiety that are not autistic.
people are socially anxious, since it is possible to be born autistic and not become socially anxious. But it is very rare, and that is because most parents don't know how to raise somebody with autism. As I've said many times in the past—
No, that's you coping. Your parents didn't know how to raise someone with autism, and that's why you ended up being Manchi. The fucking reality of it is, and I'm going to explain this better than you, I fucking know it, you're not going to explain it this way. The fucking thing is, autistic people like consistency. They like the world to not change. They like things to be predictable. They like to have a schedule. They like things to go a certain way. And the thing about being in social situations and being around people aren't really predictable. People aren't really understandable. Everyone is different in their own way, and everyone thinks differently. So autistic people have a hard time coping with the fact that they could be completely fine with people and completely polite to people, but someone can say, go fuck yourself, or I hate you for no reason. Because there are just schizos out there who will do that. There are people out there who will just hate you for no apparent reason. Autistic people don't like that thought because they want the world to work in a predictable way. It's the same thing with how Chris Chan perceived the world. Chris Chan had a tutorial on how to get women, and he thought by following that tutorial that he would instantly get a woman. But the reality of it is that life doesn't work that way. Every woman wants different things, and every woman thinks differently. So to think that you can make a tutorial on how to get a girlfriend is completely fucking ridiculous. But he didn't understand that because he expected life to be predictable. He expected everything to go by a certain rule and everything to go by a certain criteria. I know that that's complicated, but that's literally the reason why some autistic people have social anxiety and can't cope with social situations. Now let's see if Bowblax gets anywhere near to that level of understanding. Also, we got a chat. He does realize that his autism and experiences with it will likely not all be the same as other people with autism. Yeah, I've been saying that for like an hour. I've had friends in high school who were autistic, who knew how to talk to people. Yeah, that's what I was saying. There are autistic people out there who are better off than Bowblax. They have careers, they have families, they have a wife and kids, they can drive, they can multitask, they can go to social functions, they're not online being a man-she. There are completely functional autistic people out there. But Bowblax wants to blame all of his downsides on autism, but then also act like he doesn't have a mental disability.
One of the major differences between an autistic person and a neurotypical person is how they learn how to socialize. We don't just naturally learn how to socialize over time by interacting with people. We actually have to be told and taught what to do and how to.
That's fucking stupid. Not all autistic people are like that. There are some autistic people that can socialize pretty normally. They just have other traits that autistic people have. That's the thing, is that Bowblax understands that he has autism, but he doesn't understand that autism isn't just him. He's not autism. Everyone handles autism in different ways.
To do it. Just like if you were learning any other skill, like how to cook, how to clean, how to repair a car, etc. Now, because most people who end up having autistic children don't even know anything about autism prior to their child's birth, the immediate approach they try to take in order to help their autistic child get through life is to just tell them what to do for certain social situations in school.
This is just Bowblax venting. This is just Bowblax telling me about how Mommy didn't understand him and Daddy was disappointed. Bowblax, I don't care that your parents are disappointed in you. This is supposed to be a channel about understanding autism, not understanding your social security number.
Scold them when they get something wrong. Like, for example, when you receive a gift, you're supposed to say thank you. So if you don't say thank you, the parent teaches the child to say thank you when receiving a gift. But the issue with this approach is that we don't know why we're saying thank you. It's just a script we have to read. Given a gift, say thank you. You don't know why you need to say thank you.
You should be able to understand why you would say thank you, other than someone just telling you why you should say thank you. I understand that you literally don't connect it in your mind, but there are plenty of autistic people out there who feel thanks. And when you feel grateful for someone giving you something, you will express that.
You don't know that the reason is to inform the gifter that you are appreciative.
In his logic, that babies/kids already know how to socialize. Yeah, that's it. That's literally his mindset, is that normal people just are born knowing how to do everything. Everything's easy for them. They are the Chads and Stacys of the world. Meanwhile, he is but the lonely virgin, and everyone is playing kick the autistic kid, and everyone's bullying him and treating him like trash, and they think they're better than him. That's literally his mindset, because he's a perpetual victim in his mind, and everyone else is infinitely more capable than him because he resents everyone.
Of it. We just know that you have to say thank you. Now, in that particular instance, knowing why you need to say thank you isn't that big of a deal.
Honestly, I think this says more about him than he realizes. The fact that he uses the analogy of being thankful, that tells a lot. And I'm going to psychoanalyze him for a minute. This is something I haven't done since my Chris Chan videos. But honestly, I think that he truly wasn't thankful for the career that Augie and Nicholas Diorio gave him, because he didn't understand that he should be thankful. He didn't understand that these people were building him up so that he could be successful on his own, and that he should be grateful for that and not try to screw them over. In the end, he was just following the script in his head and doing what he thought he had to do in order to fit in. He thought that he had to bash on trans people because Augie bashes on trans people. He thought that he had to do memes because Turkey Tom does certain memes. He thought that he had to cover drama because Nicholas Diorio is into drama. In the end, he had no real thoughts and no real opinions of his own. And I think the thing is that when you break down all of the fakeness of Bowblax, he is, deep down inside, his innermost true self, beyond the ego. He is a Mayo monkey. Deep down inside, Bowblax, the innermost true Bowblax, is a fucking hairy, disgusting weirdo who eats mayonnaise with his bare hands. That is who he is deep down inside when he finally rejects everything that people say he should be. He is a Mayo monkey. Mayo Monkey is not just a colorful mascot for him, it is who he truly is.
But when you apply that logic to other social situations, it can turn into a bit of an issue for that child's social development. They know they have to say certain things, but they don't know why, so when a situation comes up that they've never experienced before, they don't have any frame of reference to create their own social response,
And that's different than any other fucking kid. It's different than anybody else who was growing up.
Causes awkward situations in the best case scenario, and people getting pissed at you thinking you're an asshole in the worst case scenarios.
Go full
and those
circle.
worst case scenarios is what creates social anxiety.
Those worst case scenarios is when you're screaming, "Let me speak," and becoming a manshi. That is the worst case scenario. Ending up where you are currently, that is the worst case scenario.
We eventually get something wrong socially, people will get mad at us, and then in the future, we won't want to make those mistakes in fear of getting yelled at or...
That's literally social conditioning. That is what we do with animals. That is what we do with children. That is what we do with everything. You condition the thing by being like, if you do this thing, you get rewarded. If you do this thing, you get scolded. Therefore, this thing good, that thing bad. We've literally conditioned rats like this. This is such a basic, fundamental idea.
People getting angry with us, which creates a shit ton of social anxiety out of fear of getting something wrong and
This has literally nothing to do with anxiety.
Somebody getting mad at us. Basically, we are acting in a huge play or movie without knowing the lines, and when we get the lines wrong, people get mad at us.
See, that's it. He literally just confirmed it. I'm done with this video after this part right here. He literally just confirmed it. He thinks that the whole fucking world is a play, and that he is reading his script. Bowblax, you are fake. You are a fake person. It has nothing to do with your autism. It has everything to do with you're not being yourself. You're being what you think people want you to be instead of who you are. You have no identity. You have no self-realization. You have no identity at all. I don't understand how you can exist perpetually as an NPC, only being what people want you to be. You seriously need to go see a doctor, go see a psychiatrist, and tell them about these type of thoughts. And they will help you build up your own identity and figure out who the fuck you are. Because that's not normal. You shouldn't be reading the script of reality. There is no script. Anyway, that was social anxiety. Now let's go to the ingredients of autism. We are making an autism souffle. Let's see how burnt it gets.
So a lot of people don't understand autism, and one of the biggest factors in the common misunderstanding of it is the simplicity in which people view it. Normally when it comes to any disorder, or just thing in general, it's pretty easy to explain and simple to understand. You have an extra finger, your legs aren't working. Obviously there's a...
This is what Bowblax said in a different video too, and I'm just gonna say now, it's ableist. It's an ableist mindset. He literally thinks that everyone in the world thinks that unless you can see someone's disability, they're not disabled. When that's completely fucking dumb. And also, it's ableist to anybody who has physical disabilities that you can't see. Like, it is completely ridiculous to sum up mental disabilities like this.
Plethora of things you have to deal with as a result of that condition, but the condition itself is not that difficult to explain. And most people see autism in the same way. You just have autism. Autism is autism.
I don't think autism is your problem. I think you're just fucking stupid. I think being stupid is your problem. Is Bowblax just telling us he's so stupid he can't connect when something is wrong, and he gets punished for it, and repeatedly that he can't connect the action to the punishment at all? Yes, that is what he is telling us, but he doesn't realize he's telling us that. Whenever his friends try to punish him and give him any type of consequences to his actions, he does not realize why he's being punished, and he's only doing what he has to do to get back into the good graces of them and to just be allowed to continue acting the way that he does.
But that's not exactly the right way to look at it, as in order to be autistic you have to have a wide range of other mental disabilities that all culminate into autism. I think the best way to describe it is with baking. Autism is the full cake, and other stuff like depression, anxiety, Tourette's, OCD are the flour, sugar, water, etc. So
that's fucking stupid. Like, literally, the fucking picture he has makes no fucking sense. ADD is its own fucking thing. Attention deficit disorder is its own fucking condition. ODD is its own fucking condition. ADHD is its own fucking condition. People with autism can have those conditions. Autism plays hand in hand with having those conditions. But the thing is that people with any fucking mental disability can have other conditions. People with fucking bipolar disorder can also have depression. That's kind of one of the main components of that. But they can also have OCD. They can also have ADD, ADHD. Like, people with schizophrenia, they can have clinical depression. They can have other conditions that connect to their disability. It's not guaranteed, though. Autism is its own mental disorder, and autism can lead to connecting to other mental disorders. But they're not all part of autism.
The individual ingredients are easy to understand, but the entire cake is a lot more complex as a result of...
You don't know how to bake a cake. That's what you're saying. You don't know how to bake a cake. You know what a cake should look like, but you don't actually understand the ingredients. You're throwing in the ingredients of 8 different cakes into one bowl. And you're like, why is it garbage? I don't get it. Why did this not cook right? It's the ingredients of 8 different cakes, so it should make a cake. And then I just lost him there. He doesn't understand what I'm saying.
Being a combination of all these things. This is why there's an autism spectrum, because every autistic person have different levels of severity with all of these 12 disorders. So whereas someone with a more simple disorder, like let's say their legs are broken, if you see two people in a wheelchair, they generally are going to have the same experience. But if you take two
That's fucking stupid and completely ableist. Two people who have physical disabilities are not going to live the same shared experience. I don't want to fucking dox people, but I have someone in my fucking family who was born with a physical condition to where their spine is fucked, and therefore it's extremely painful for them to walk. They could walk. They could walk if they wanted to. They could get crutches. They could learn how to deal with the pain. But they chose to end up being in a wheelchair because they don't want to live their life in physical pain just to walk around like other people. Meanwhile, there are some people whose legs are completely paralyzed. The person who has functioning legs but just deals with immense pain using them is going to have a completely different experience than the person who can't move their legs at all, who feel no sensation in their legs. Or hell, if you want to get dark and morbid, the guy who gets shot in the spine and now has lost the ability of his legs when he once knew what they felt like and knew how to move them is going to have a completely different experience than someone who was born without knowing how to move their legs. In the attempts to be more progressive and to spread the awareness about autism, Bowblax is extremely ableist about every other mental and physical disorder. I don't understand how I got this cake from Tumblr and it told me to put 2 cups of vanilla extract in it. Why is it gross? Yeah, exactly. I was told to make a cherry cake and I put all this chocolate in it. And then I also put vanilla in it. And then I also put blueberries in it. And I don't know why it's gross.
autistic people, they could act in completely different ways and deal with it in completely different ways. It's also why you see so many people with one of these disorders learning about autism and then saying, maybe I'm undiagnosed autistic. Most of the time when they think
That's literally what he did with BPD. That's literally what he did with BPD. He fucking looked at BPD and he's like, I guess I'm 99% sure I have BPD. When he didn't know anything about it, he didn't fucking know anything about like what it takes to get diagnosed with this. He didn't actually go to therapy and actually fucking talk to a professional. He just diagnosed himself.
that's not actually the case, because you can have a lot of these autistic traits without actually being autistic. Like, for example, you could just be depressed, or just have anxiety, or just have...
The key mental disorder that Bowblax doesn't understand and likes to target a lot is depression. He literally thinks that being depressed is just having the sads. That is actually what he thinks, is that being depressed is just having the sads. And if I go get an ice cream sundae, my depression will clear right up.
Tourette's, or even just have a couple of these things, but not necessarily be autistic. But regardless, let's actually get into the details of these traits. Now, this is only one of many images I looked up online in regards to this. I don't know if all of these traits are concrete, and I've seen different images with different things on them, but to me, after looking through Google Images for a couple minutes, I think this one is the most accurate. We can start off with ODD, which stands for Oppositional Defiant Disorder, which is basically just behavioral problems. This is the trait that coined the classic term spurging out. Personally, I'm not too affected by this. I know as a kid, I have been a pain in the ass, and I can sometimes have outbursts.
Just saying, the term that causes the usage of spurging out is Asperger's disorder, which has now been lumped into autism spectrum disorder. And the reason why it's called spurging out is Asperger, spurging. Someone who has Asperger disorder is a spurg. Like, it's common language. You can literally add it up just by sounding it out.
bursty moments, but generally I'm not too affected by this. Next, we have specific learning
Also, he is so affected by it.
difficulties, which pretty much speaks for itself. Just if you have trouble learning or following instructions properly, that's essentially what this is. For me, I have a pretty average amount of this. I don't have too much trouble learning, but I'm a lot slower than the average person.
He is very unself-aware. He does not know anything about his issues.
Next up, we have ADHD, which is a entirely different can of worms. It also goes hand in hand with ADD. They are pretty similar. I don't know why they're two separate circles on this image.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. He doesn't understand the difference between ADD and ADHD. He literally thinks that ADD and ADHD are the same disorder. This is a channel about teaching people about a mental disorder from a guy who knows nothing about other mental disorders. He literally thinks that ADD and ADHD are the same fucking disorder.
But regardless, I am very, very ADHD, and I think it actually affects me more than my overall autism. Like, this is some of the most difficulty I have personally.
No, your autism affects you more than any other thing that you can name.
With any mental disorder, although I do think ADHD comes with a lot of pros as well as cons. I can't explain it all here. I'm probably going to do a dedicated video on it. So for now, let's just move on to anxiety. And by the way, when we talk about anxiety,
By the way, I have ADD, not ADHD. So, I can tell you, they're completely different fucking disorders.
and depression, I'm talking about clinically diagnosed anxiety and depression to the point of being irrationally anxious and depressed in your mind and being unable to control it. This is very different than just feeling anxious in an anxious moment.
Also, anxiety disorder is not fucking connected to depression. People who have anxiety have a greater risk of being depressed. But you can have anxiety disorder without having depression. To just lump depression in with anxiety is showing your lack of knowledge with anxiety.
Or feeling depressed in a moment that makes sense to feel depressed. Everybody has anxiety, and
Anxiety doesn't cause depression. Anxiety is hand in hand with depression.
depression, as it's just a general feeling people have, but there's a difference between actually being clinically diagnosed
People feel sad. Not everyone feels depressed.
with it and just feeling anxious in a moment that makes sense to. Regardless, I'm a very anxious person, and it severely impacts my life in
The
a
one time where I agree with him.
negative way, to the point where I actually have to take medication for it. I made a whole separate video talking about it more in depth, so you can check that out if you'd like.
That video was also shit.
Moving on, we go to Tourette's, which is what causes autistic people to stim. For me personally, I don't really stim that much. This is probably the
Tourette's is its own disorder too. You can have Tourette's without being autistic. You can have, like, autistic people tend to have social tics. They tend to have a tic. But just because you have a tic doesn't mean that you have autism. I had a few tics when I was a child, but I'm not autistic. I had extremely bad ADD, and I had extremely bad dyslexia. So I kind of got caught in loops a lot, and I was thinking to myself a little too much. But that doesn't mean that because I had a tic that I had Tourette's or that I was autistic. Like, the mind is a bigger spectrum than Bowblax likes to give it credit to, and he just wants to diagnose himself with any random fucking mental disorder. You're not an expert, so you shouldn't be talking about having any of this shit.
lowest trait out of all of them that I have on this list, but I do stim occasionally, and it's fun. I like doing it, so I don't see a problem.
Tourette's is fun, guys. It's super fun. Bowblax, go on fucking Tumblr, make a TikTok. Just fucking. Oh, God.
Problem with this one. Although I'm sure for people who have more severe Tourette's, it actually is an issue, so I'm not going to
You
trivialize
mean people who have Tourette's? People who actually have Tourette's. That's what you mean.
realize it, but for me, it's not that much of an issue. Next, we have OCD, which stands for Obsessive Compulsion Disorder, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's when you're too obsessive and compulsive about it. For me, this is relatively high because it goes hand in hand with anxiety. I often feel that I get obsessive about a certain thought, and that creates anxiety, or anxiety creates obsessive thoughts about something. Next up, we have developmental delays, which is pretty similar to specific learning difficulties, but more of just overall growing up. I'd say this is like the core of autism. Like, every autistic person has developmental delays to some degree, mostly in the social category. Like, for example, I didn't say my first word until 4 years old, which is very, very late, very, very developmentally delayed.
I'll say this, when it comes to the developmentally delayed part, he does understand it. He does actually get that part. He hasn't understood any of the other parts, but he does seem to have an understanding with this part.
So that's essentially what this is. Next is actually a very positive one, which is gifted. I feel like because there's so many deficiencies in all the other traits of autism, it's balanced out by being very...
Gifted should not be there. Gifted cannot be explained. It is not a condition. Gifted is literally just a nice way to say differently abled. It's a nice way to say that you act and think differently. It's like a 2000s millennial term that was like a substitute for calling someone autistic. Instead of saying that they were retarded or saying that they were autistic, you would just say they're gifted.
Very gifted in certain aspects. How I see myself and other autistic people is that we're very much a double-edged sword. We're really bad at some things, but really good at others. For me, my gift is what I'm doing right now, being very...
That is not your gift. Your gift is not what you're doing right now. I don't know what you're gifted in. Everyone's gifted in something, but you are not good at this. You could not read the room and understand that people just wanted you to read tweets, and instead you tried to become an autistic porn star. I've seen your dick.
Very articulate. I only put this as 40% for me because I don't think being articulate is like the most gifted thing in the
You
world.
should have 0% because you're not gifted.
Like 100% for me would be being intelligent enough to help cure cancer and make actually innovative moves to change society for the better. But most people aren't like that, so if you're autistic and you're watching this video, don't feel too bad if your gift is not maybe as good, for lack of a better term, as other people's. What's important is just to capitalize on what you're good at and love the fact that you have that advantage within yourself. If you don't know what your gift is yet, don't worry, it's not that big of a deal. I'm sure you're utilizing your gift subconsciously and you don't even know it. I've never met an autistic person
Yeah, you're
who
right. You're right, fucking jargon. Being good at some things and being bad at other things, that's just called being human. That is 100% true. And that's why being gifted shouldn't even be on there. Like, it is just the most basic fucking understanding thing altogether. It is literally just understanding that everyone is fucking different. It's not an exclusive thing to autistic people.
Hasn't had some sort of special thing to them. Anyways, moving on to sensory integration disorder, which is basically when you get irritated or overly sensitive to certain touches or senses, which is very similar to the next one, which is auditory processing disorder, which is pretty much the exact same thing, but just for audio. You know how everyone says autistic people are really annoyed by loud noises and...
Just saying, that is also something that extremely affects people who are bipolar. So it's not just something that's exclusive to the autism spectrum.
Get into kind of meltdown mode because of it. That's basically what these two things are. And then last but not least, we have depression, which is pretty self-explanatory. Most people know what depression...
You don't know what depression is! I've been waiting for you to know what depression is this whole fucking time. But you do not know what depression is. And I'm gonna let you explain it again. And if you're wrong, we're never hearing you explain depression again.
Is. Luckily for me, I don't really deal with it that much myself, which thank God, I think I would rather be overly anxious than overly depressed, but occasionally I do get depressed and it does suck, but it doesn't affect me as heavily as most people. And that's it.
He didn't explain what depression was. He just said he doesn't have it, which means that he still thinks it's just having a bad case of the SADS. He's just not feeling good that day. That's what depression is. I felt depressed yesterday, but I'm fine now. Yeah, that's what it is, Bowblax. Let's go to the stigma around the word autism. And I'm getting rid of crazy dreams and channel update because I don't want to keep watching this shit. So we're gonna just watch stigma around the word autism.
Autism. Autistic.
Oh,
What
I want to crank up that audio.
do you think of when you hear those words? Whether you want to
I think of you. I think of Chris Chan. That's what I think of when I hear those words.
admit it or not, most people would immediately interpret that term as being negative, as in society, autism has always been labeled as a mental disability, and when
It is a mental disability. Say it with me, Bowblax. Nice and slow. Autism is a mental disability. Also, now since I'm pausing it here, Sonic is on that money, meaning that Sonic is committing a federal offense by putting himself on the dollar bill. Unless this whole world is so obsessed with Sonic that he got to be on the dollar bill.
we look at disabilities like not having a leg or not having an arm, obviously that's a full-on disability.
He literally thinks this. He's repeated it 4 times now. If your disability isn't visible, it's not a disability to him. Like, unless you have a body part non-functioning, you're not disabled to Bowblax. That's incredibly ableist, and he doesn't even realize it. And I can't get too mad at him, because it's his autistic mental disorder that is making him fucking overanalyze what a disability is.
Advantage, and there's almost no advantage to being that way. Most people who have no arms or have no legs would prefer to have an arm or have a leg.
People who are missing certain senses can make up for it by having enhanced other senses. There are people who, because they don't have the use of their legs, they can actually lift more. They can actually fucking use their arms better than someone who gets to use their legs. That's why the term differently abled was fucking coined.
So because of the negative connotation associated with the word autism or autistic, whenever
I think you just have a negative connotation with disability. You have a negative connotation with disability and being disabled, and you don't want to accept that you are disabled. Bowblax, you are disabled. If you're not getting a disability check, file for one. Because I'd rather you have a disability check than to ever see your penis again.
that word is used, it's mostly to invoke sympathy or be used as an insult, and that's the way people view it. Let's say you call someone autistic as just a general insult. Someone's being dumb, they're acting silly, that person isn't necessarily autistic, but you're like, damn, you're acting so autistic right now, or something stupid happens and someone says, well, that's pretty autistic. Or it can go the other way, where people are like, oh, my son is autistic, oh, that's so sad, oh, I wish I could help him. But outside of those two scenarios, the word autistic or autism is rarely used in any other way, or rarely interpreted in any other way.
And the reality of it is because the vocal minority has been negative. The people online who tend to be the most annoying, who tend to be the most out there, who tend to be the most socially degenerate fucking weird people happen to also be autistic. And they let everyone know that they're autistic. And because they are the vocal minority, people see them and they're exposed to them, they think this is autism. So then they start associating those traits with anybody who exhibits those traits. So even if you're a neurodivergent person and you're not autistic, if you're showing autistic traits, because the prolific amount of autistic people who showed those traits, they're going to call you autistic. It's just slang. It's common vernacular. It is easy to understand why people started using autistic and autism as a slang and why it's used in the way it is.
And when it is used in any other way, specifically a positive context, it's very often misinterpreted as an insult. For example, the name of...
Also, Bowblax is not innocent in this regard. He has called people gay and plenty of other slurs that just describe a normal thing in life. So, he really isn't the one to speak in this situation. They shouldn't let him speak in this situation.
This channel is truly autistic. When I made it, people thought it was a joke. Truly autistic, that just sounds so silly and demeaning. But why does it sound demeaning? Why is the word autistic inherently demeaning? Obviously, it's because of the history of seeing it as a mental illness. But you know what else had a history of being seen as a mental illness and was for a very long time used as a demeaning word, and still sometimes is to this day? Homosexuality. People sometimes call things gay as an insult. Not as—
Yeah, you included! You included! You've said tons of fucking homophobic things online. And the thing is, I don't give a shit. I can't act innocent and act like that I'm not guilty. We've all had a sense of humor at one point in our life. We've all said edgy and stupid things on the internet. But I'm not gonna fucking make a video telling people to fucking not use one slang insult when they want to use it. Just because you are autistic doesn't mean that you're entitled to make this video when you clearly fucking use other slang terms that insult people from other fucking minorities.
common anymore, but
I
definitely
think the thing you should learn is when to shut the fuck up and just not speak.
more common about 10 years ago or even further back. And I feel like with the word autism and autistic, we are in a very similar place as the word gay all those years ago. Currently, I can look at someone like James Charles and be like, oh, he's so gay, and not have it automatically taken as an insult by everybody. Whereas 10 years ago, that would be mostly interpreted as an insult. Now let's say there's someone who's acting autistic. They are exhibiting one of the many traits of autism. Maybe they're very obsessed with playing Sonic Adventure 2. I call them autistic. That will always
I love
be seen
that Bowblax automatically associates Sonic the Hedgehog with autism. And yet this is supposed to be an autistic acceptance channel. This is supposed to be an autistic acceptance channel, and he's literally tying Sonic into autism.
As an insult to this day. If I call someone autistic for doing something autistic, it will automatically be seen as an insult and not just an observation of how they are acting, because there's automatically negative connotations with the word autism. And I feel like that's the biggest issue when it comes to being an autistic person or advocating for other autistic people.
I'm just gonna end this video with this, end this discussion with this. The way that you think people view the word autism is the way that you view the word disabled. You're literally preaching to the fucking choir because you have the same connotations toward being disabled. There is nothing wrong with being disabled. I don't know why you can't accept that you are autistic and you are disabled. I don't care about there are two different autistic spectrums, so we're gonna go on to a different one. Pressure to perform. This one's very relevant to Bowblax, so let's hear about his pressure to perform. Bowblax can't really stack up in the bedroom, so we're gonna hear about his pressure to perform.
Now, I'm not a medical professional and I can only speak for my own personal experience, but as someone growing up on the spectrum, one of the toughest parts for me was keeping up with the pressure to perform. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, as many of you guys may know, one of the most common traits of autism is the fact that we aren't born with the ability to naturally learn and pick up on social cues. That doesn't mean they're impossible to learn or impossible for us to detect, but we have to learn in a more manual way, kind of like being taught how to be a plumber or being taught any other skill that you can't inherently pick up. Now, what I mean by pressure to perform is that
Yet again, that could be said for anybody. The thing is like, it's not that you have to be manually programmed like a fucking robot. The thing is that you understand and perceive these things differently. Basically, I can say A is A, and you would think A is B, and someone who thinks normally would think A is A. That's the difference between it, is that you can perceive and understand things differently than others. But the other people, the people who are normal, quote unquote, they still also have to be taught social cues. They also have to be taught how to function as a normal human. They also have to be taught how to socialize. It's just they perceive it differently than you, which is where your mental disorder comes into play.
Due to a lower understanding of autism, especially for parents back in the early 2000s when I was growing.
Bowblax's parents suck. That is the message of all these videos. His parents fucking suck. They didn't know what autistic people was, just like Chris Chan, and they obviously neglected him in some way, according to him. He keeps venting about his parents in all these fucking videos. Oh my god! The thumbnail for that one is a cake! I didn't realize that. The thumbnail is a cake. Okay.
Up when an autistic child quote-unquote misbehaved due to not following an obvious social rule that a neurotypical kid would, we are told that it's bad and not to do it again, but we are never told exactly why, making the job of not
People have told you exactly why. People have told you exactly why over and over and over again when you're doing dumb shit online, why it's bad and why you shouldn't do it. And you still choose to do it. And that has nothing to do with the fact that you're autistic. It has everything to do with the fact that you're a piece of shit. It has everything to do with the fact that you choose to not do what is right. You choose to not do the thing that you're expected to do. And the thing is like, your autism can impact your perception of things. And I can keep explaining that over and over again, but autistic people still understand the difference between right and wrong. They still understand morality. You're basically calling autistic people fucking sociopaths.
Behaving feel more like playing a role as an actor rather than learning from your mistake and adapting better behavior to your current.
Okay, so yet again, this is where I'm ending this video. Bowblax literally confirms yet again that he is the fakest person on fucking YouTube, and that he thinks everything in life is a game. Life is like a video game. Like, he literally lives his life like that. And he literally thinks that there is a script to understanding how to be normal, and that if he follows the script, the play will play out the way it's supposed to. That if he's one argument away from winning everyone back over and being on top again, he honestly doesn't fucking understand because he's stupid. Okay, so now we go to Bowblax looking like he's disabled, but he'll tell you he's not disabled. They took our word and made it a slur. This is the last video for today, guys.
The R word, people made it edgy. It wasn't that edgy before. You would see.
Yeah, it wasn't. Mental retardation was to describe the overall spectrum of mental disorders.
It in media all the time. I don't think retard's that edgy. I think F slur's edgy. I think N slur's edgy, obviously. I'd be crazy to not think that. R word, it's like saying dumbass or idiot, in my opinion.
So you can say retarded, but you can't call someone autistic. You can use the R slur, but you can't use the A slur.
And as I said, I want to tap the tweet again. Tap this tweet. Tap.
Oh,
Point
so
to the sign.
this whole video is because he got backlash on Twitter. That's this whole video. His fucking tweet got ratioed, so he's making a video to vent about it. Maybe you should put down the vape pen. It's obviously impacting how you're thinking.
This is true. And the other neurodivergence in my replies agrees. Dumbsville.
Is he censoring the vape pen because he doesn't want to get demonetized? Also, Dumbsville... Oh my god, I don't even want to begin on Dumbsville. If Dumbsville's agreeing with you, chances are you're doing something wrong.
Well-known autistic YouTuber. Literally, yeah, autistic.
He is a well-known autist, I'll give you that.
Well-known YouTuber. It says this: I find it crazy how neurotypicals and even some neurodivergents who may or may not have been brain rotted by neurotypicals in an attempt to fit in get mad on our behalf and act like they speak for every neurodivergent individual.
People like Bowblax and Dumbsville literally act like autism is a religion and that it is some type of fucking thing that no one can understand. That you have to have the shared experience of being an autist in order to fucking understand autism. And then they want to talk about other shit that they don't fucking understand. It's like, oh my god. I get that it's because you're autistic that you don't realize how much of a fucking dumb hypocrite you are, but you are a dumb fucking hypocrite.
I haven't seen this for any other slur. It's insane. Very fucking true. This is so fucking big.
He's getting his validation overdrive right now. He's fucking feeling fueled up because of the validation. This video has 800 views in 6 months on a fucking 5,000 subscriber channel.
If someone's like, Josh, I really don't like you saying the R word or whatever, I won't. And I've even asked...
And I'll make a whole video talking about why I should be able to, and why I'm actually more right to say it.
People, if they mention that they're neurodivergent in whatever way, I will ask, like, hey, I say I say the R word a lot. Do you mind
He said it. He said it right there.
if I, you know, say it, or would you prefer if I just don't say it in front of you? And sometimes there's been people who say, I prefer if you don't say it, and then I don't.
Well,
like,
then you don't understand why it's bad. If you'll say it around some people but not around other people, you don't get why you shouldn't say it. It's like literally your self-reporting from earlier. You see life as a video game, a play, and you have to follow the script or else you're going to be punished. You literally don't You're a sociopath. That's what I'm fucking saying. You're an actual sociopath. You are a fake person. You are an NPC to the highest degree. You don't actually understand what it means to exist. Like, there are plenty of autistic people that understand these basic fucking building blocks to being human. You're not human. You're a fucking mayo monkey. That is the reality of it is. Bowblax is not a human. He's a fucking creature who eats mayo with his bare hands. And that's everything. That's everything that I want to watch from Truly Autistic. I feel like that this fucking channel has fully made me understand Bowblax and why I don't fucking like him. I really don't like him. Mainly because he thinks that he's like an advocate for fucking... He thinks that he's an advocate for mental disabilities, but he actually doesn't understand mental disabilities. He doesn't understand any disabilities because he's just fucking stupid. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with his fucking... It has nothing to do with his mental disorder. It has everything to do with him just being dumb. God, he's just so fucking infuriating. And he hasn't uploaded on this channel for 6 months, so I'm assuming this channel's fucking dead. This channel is going to be rebranded to Mr. Manchi 2 soon, so just wait for that. Making videos about how much I love my autistic brain, but autism isn't a mental disorder. That should be your tagline. Don't call me disabled. Because disabled people are broken. They've got things that don't work. Anyway, that was our Bowblax bully stream for the day. My New Year's resolution is to do one stream where I actually remember to unmute myself. That is my New Year's resolution. Maybe next time I can actually fucking meet that resolution. Maybe one day I'll actually fucking not mess up on OBS. But we can only keep hoping. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this stream. If you like it, hit the like button. If you really like it, share it. And if you want to see more, then subscribe. Bye.